Welcome to M Squared TechCast.
Hey, it's Matt Rouse.
And Mike Brennan.
And we're back with another segment of the M Squared TechCast. And okay, all right, yeah, there we go. Okay.
No hugging or kissing in this show.
No. So. And MITechNews.TV?
And that one too, yes.
Okay, all right. Well,
we are live on Facebook, right, Dave?
All right.
The mixologist over there, Dave.
Yep. Twisting the knobs and making us look and sound wonderful. We have on the line, I think, a cannabis educator and advocate named Nikki Lawley. Nikki, are you there?
I am, Mike. Hi.
Hi.
Wow, okay. You need to boost your signal just a little bit, Dave. Right, so that was actually Matt. This is Mike. I know, anyway.
We're pretty fungible, actually.
Yeah, right. That's why it's M Squared, Matt and Mike. You know, we were going to call it the M&M show or something.
Yeah,
But Marshall Mathers told us we couldn't do that.
Yeah,
so.
not to mention the candy company.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah,
so.
okay.
So you have an interesting story. People come to businesses. I always love the backstories on how people come to businesses. And in your case, it's kind of like my son. My son, we have a little osteoporosis that runs in the family, and he was a weightlifter, and then suddenly messed up his body real badly, and now he's very soon he will be a doctor of physical therapy. So that was his route to get into his new passion. Now, in your case, it was because of an injury. Why don't you go ahead and explain how that all happened?
Sure, Mike. So I'm hearing an echo.
Oh, well, we're not, so we're good. So just work through that.
Yeah, if you can get past it, yeah.
So I was working as a pediatric nurse in a clinic about 3.5 years ago, October of 2016, and I was just doing my job like I did every day, and the child became very uncooperative for a vaccine with one of my coworkers. As a result, she needed assistance restraining the child. So I went in. This was not my first rodeo, but this kid was pretty upset. And I used my traditional restraining methods, which I went behind the parent and the child. And basically the kid at full force tucked his chin and then bounced into my frontal lobe of my brain. And then I bounced into the plaster wall and back into his head. So it was like a double impact, immediate life-changing experience.
Wow.
I now wake up every day with chronic pain, 7 out of 10, pounding at my head. And I can honestly tell you cannabis has saved my life. I've been on over 40 different pharmaceuticals. I've been on numerous therapies, seeing numerous providers. And at the end of the day, cannabis was never offered as a treatment. Now, being a pediatric nurse, sure, I had tried cannabis here and there, used it recreationally, 100%, but I never thought of it as medicine. And when I was in a legal state, Las Vegas, Nevada, I was at the end of my rope and was literally suicidal. And I was contemplating how to jump off where I was and not just get more screwed up than I already was. And a billboard comes cruising by, want your weed card, get it today at, call 1-800-GET-YOUR-WEED card. And then it came by a second time. And I was like, well, maybe cannabis will help. I don't know. But I was literally in such a dark place that it just seemed like the universe was showing its face in this double whammy, go back and forth. And so that moment, I went down with my husband. He was more than willing to get me out of this insane, sad state. I went to the medical place to get the card. It was a super simple process.
Oh, yeah.
And then I went to a dispensary and had no idea what I was doing or getting into I didn't even know these strain things existed, right?
Yeah.
It was just an overwhelming experience, but luckily I had a bud tender who was willing to take time and kind of educate me a little bit. But I tried the cannabis, and it basically took me off the ledge. And I expected I would have the same access in New York State that I did in Nevada on this trip. And I don't. I still don't. Our medical program is 150,000% different than Just about any other legal state with medical cannabis, except Minnesota. I know they don't. But we don't have full flower. We only have vape is as close as we get to smoking. And unfortunately, oils, tinctures, capsules, they don't have any effect on me because I don't absorb fat-soluble things due to weight loss surgery and no gallbladder. But what I found is smoking cannabis all day, microdosing, can bring my pain level from a 7 down to a 3, which basically means you're functioning. And convincing physicians of this, the fact that cannabis was never offered as even a potential option is pretty sad. It took me to get to the point of depression that I was in to actually find cannabis. It shouldn't have been that hard. And I guess that is what my mission is to share with others my story so that they understand cannabis might be a viable option for them, for their chronic pain, for their anxiety, for their depression, for whatever, during this coronavirus thing. I mean, everybody's anxiety is going through the roof. Well, stay home and find the right cannabis that might be yours then. Because honestly, what else can we do? If we look constantly ahead, all we have is anxiety. If we look behind us, all we have is depression. But if we live in the here and the now, and we smoke our cannabis, and we medicate, and we can educate, the whole world would be a better place.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that it's never been legal at the federal level has sort of barred the kind of rigorous medical research that could show some of these things, I would think, and I think that's where we need to get is actual research on this. There's so many anecdotal reports of people being helped the way you are, but obviously not much in the way of scientific study. Yeah,
and the thing is, the two presidents, well, I'm not saying Joe Biden has it sewed up, but it looks pretty darn close. And he's not a big supporter of cannabis. He thinks it's a, quote, gateway drug. And we know that President Trump doesn't like it. So I don't know, even after the 2020 elections, whether it's going to move off Schedule 1 or not.
I would bet you Biden gets shoved to the left on this one, but who knows?
Who knows? Yeah. Strange things, yeah.
I wrote Bloomberg. I've written Biden. I am that passionate about the plant. Sharing my stories. I wrote to the New York State drug czar, our guy here that just got left Rhode Island and came to New York State. It's a really uphill battle. And my image is a different one than the traditional, quote, stoner image. Not that there should be any kind of stigma or image to that. I mean, it's really kind of discriminatory, but the truth is the plant is really stigmatized.
Yeah.
A leading expert in my area challenged me talking about my symptoms, and he said, "Oh, you're just smoking pot to get high. That's illegal." And I said to him, I said, "No, I'm medicating. You're totally wrong." And he's like, "You do not get any benefit from smoking weed. You're just getting combustibles." And I'm like, "You're the cannabis expert in our state? This is just frightening."
There needs to be
out there.
I know that there's a lot of talk about doing clinical studies. So that's the big issue right now. Is these the dentists and the doctors and whatnot are loath to prescribe something that they can't point to on studies, and maybe it's the malpractice situation, maybe it's just ignorance. I don't know what it is, but clearly we need to do some clinical testing. Don't you agree?
I agree definitely with clinical trials, but we can honestly look to Israel. Israel has so many studies. I understand they're not on U.S. soil because of our scheduling, but we can change that perception. And there are plenty of studies that just aren't the exact same drug randomized studies because they're not legal. But there are plenty of studies all across the U.S. and Canada and Israel and Europe with legitimate evidence of brain injury and cannabis being beneficial. Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, there's so many benefits. That's where I get my information because those are able to study. And the ignorance is, well, if it wasn't created exactly by the way this drug manufacturer does it, it's not valid. That's just not correct because, we're getting a lot of subjective reports from patients because different cannabinoids and different terpenes and different products affect people differently.
Yes.
Because we all have unique systems.
Right.
Well,
So-
sure. They're talking more and more about individualized medicine. Why don't you talk a little bit about the different strains that you tried and what you found worked best for you?
Sure. Again, this is just my personal experience. It's never recommended. It was trial and error. I've probably tried about 400 different strains in the last 2 years.
I didn't know there were that many of them.
Oh my gosh, there's so many. And I travel to Canada all the time. So I'm 15 minutes from the Canadian border. So I get a ton of cannabis experience over on that side of the border. But yeah, how I kind of have figured it out is I've isolated the limonene and pinene as terpenes that are very effective for me. So finding strains high in those is kind of my quest. Like the lemon haze, for instance, in many cases is an appropriate one. I actually found a manufacturer in Nevada that is truly next level, and they were instrumental in some true strains that work better for me than anything ever has. One's called A-Dub, one's called Sticky Bee, and one's called Orange Juice. And these are all their specific strains. I mean, you can't go somewhere here in my state or in Nevada, just anywhere and request those. But they've actually had such an impact. I've been to Vegas now 7 or 8 times since my incident because of finding medicine that works. And it's really frustrating that I have to leave my state to get medicine that's effective. But through trial and error, I mean, and the quality of life issue is huge, I mean, it's the difference between getting up and functioning versus spending the day in bed.
Yeah.
Cannabis can change so many people's outlooks, and it gives you hope when you have none. And that's what it did for me.
Okay. So I know you're a nurse, you're an educator, you're an advocate. If folks want to reach out to you and, have you come and speak or talk or provide some information that you've acquired over the years doing this, how would they do that?
The best way is probably email, which is my name, Nikki, Nikki, Lawley, Lawley, the number 1, at gmail.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. And I also have a plant page on Facebook called Nikki and the Plant.
Nikki and the Plant. Okay.
All right. And there's also, you're on a website called Linktree that I hadn't seen before. And that's,
isn't that cool?
Yeah, and that's LINK, that's linktr.ee/Nikki Lawley. Once again, spelled NIKKILAWLEY.
Yep. All right,
Perfect.
Nikki, thanks for being on the show today, and we'll make sure you get a copy of this segment, MP4 file, as soon as we get it produced.
Okay, thank you so much. Have a great day.
All right,
you.
thanks. Nikki Lawley, cannabis educator and advocate, with us here today on the M-Squared TechCast. For right now, it's Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
And you're watching on Facebook and at podcastdetroit.com.
Whoop.
Also, MITechNews.TV, and this is the M-Squared TechCast.
Indeed.
Traditional four-year students love Lawrence Technological University's thriving campus life, but LTU has always met non-traditional students' needs too. Lawrence Tech offers over 100 degree and certificate programs that can get adult students started or back on track. And most of our classes are conveniently offered evenings at our beautiful Southfield campus or online, so you can balance your social, family, and work life even while you power up your career. Lawrence Tech, where Blue Devils dare.